inspired to push through. Because there's a spark in you. Breakthrough or bust. Hello, welcome back to Breakthrough or Bust. I am so happy that you are here, and I'm very excited to share with you Charity Schaefer, aka Clarity Charity. How are you, Charity?
I'm amazing. How are you?
I'm great. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell everybody a little about you?
Sure. What do you want to know specifically?
What do you want to tell us about you today? What do you think will resonate?
Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, I am Charity Schaefer. I have been in the profession, I would say, of sales, if you will. Oh my gosh, I really honestly don't even like to say anymore because it starts to make me sound old. But for over 20 years, at least, was in that built inside of the profession of network marketing, which was really kind of like my gateway to entrepreneurship for about a decade. I love sales. I am really excited to be here with you guys today. And I think we'll get into even more pertinent things as we just kind of have a conversation,
For sure. As it rolls out.
Yeah.
Well, yes. So do you want to get right into it and share with us a little bit about what was your challenge? And I always say we have many, but we bring one to share.
Yeah, no, I love that. Honestly, now that you're kind of getting me loosened up here a little bit about it, I think one of the title of your podcast, Breakthrough to Bust. Okay. I think that's a really beautiful title. And I think it resonates a lot with even what my life story is. And my hope is that it will add value to your audience. And I'll tell you, like, if I'm to bring just one story, I'm going to just try to sum it up for you, okay, in the time that we have, all right, in hopes that it will inspire someone that's listening to know that, sometimes we get dealt cards growing up, even into birth, we get dealt a set of cards, right? And I think it's important for somebody out there to know that they're not their circumstances, though, and that we always get choices in our matters.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get into a lesson here in a moment. However, I'll say that from a very early on age, I was built into a family, not built into, that's an interesting word, born into a family that was, one of very low income. I was the oldest of 4 kids. And there was a lot of dysfunction growing up, and I think that's part of the reason why that I really align with you. And I think with your message and also what we do at Grit to Glory. I'm the founder and the owner of Grit to Glory. And so much of that's about teaching women how to overcome, break through, and live free. Okay. And part of what I was going with that is in really what I will call like generational curses, right? Okay. So I was born into a family, love my family, love my parents. I'm incredibly grateful for my experience, but it was very dysfunctional. So, I remember being in and out of foster care homes, orphanages, had to really, from the very get-go, be the one that I was, I guess, what you would call like family dynamics, kind of like the hero, right? Like the one that took care of my siblings, often was the one that was put in situations where I also had to care for my parents. And, fast forward a little bit in my teen years, I can remember I grew up in Kentucky. We weren't asked, we actually had to leave our home. We became wards of the state. We were placed inside of a home with our aunt and uncle. And that was in Illinois. And I'll tell you, so like here was this adversity that we grew up in as children, which was lots of ebbs and flows, right? Not a lot of stability, really didn't know what was coming or going or whatever kind of thing. So then, I'm living in Illinois. I'm a teenager, right? I'm probably about 16, 17 years old. I think I moved there when I was a junior in high school, and I'm there with my siblings. And that was really my first take, if you will, of like, I guess not having to be the adult all the time. if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, was able to experience that for a little while, for my junior and senior year. And then I always had this thought process, though, if you will, of, my intention was not to have kids early. I'd felt like that I had really honestly had a lot of weight on my shoulders and raising like my siblings, if I'm being really honest. I just thought, like that is not what I'm going to do with my life. This is not what I'm going to do, all these different things. And well, because I did live in such a life of a lot of rules and regulations and it was strict, as much as that might sound like it's almost like it almost contradicts itself. Okay. But there was some of that as well in the dynamics. I think once I turned 18, I was like, party hardy, baby. If you will. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I made some decisions and choices, and which led me to, having my first daughter when I was, I guess, 19. So, I did the exact opposite of what I said.
I was going to say, so much for that.
Right. So much for that. And I look at that now and I can, my oldest daughter, she is going to be 17 in February. And I think to myself, what a gift though, actually is what it ended up being. And, but I had her when I was 19, and then I had my second daughter about 14 months later. So I had two daughters by the time I was like 20, right before I turned 21.
Wow.
And so, my life is not going exactly how I had planned, right? Like kind of thing, right?
Seldom does.
Because I had all these ambitions and all these things and whatever, right? So I am right before 21 and I have two daughters. And, anyway, fast forward a little bit with that, just due to some choices and some things that had occurred and so on and so forth, by the time I was 22, I ended up in a homeless shelter. So was in a homeless shelter, a women's homeless shelter. And, my kids weren't with me at that time because I didn't have an ability to care and take care of them like they needed to meet their basic needs, right? I was having a challenge in meeting my own basic needs. And I can remember laying there. So I was in the homeless shelter and I was laying in this bed. And I was thinking to myself, because you only got to be, I was actually grateful to be at this place because some of the other shelters in the area, it was one of those things where you go line up each night.
Oh, yes.
And if you didn't get a bed, then you just
didn't get a bed. Yeah.
Right. And with this particular place that I had got accepted into, I think I had about 3 months. I think it was 3 months that you got to be there. And during that time, they would offer counseling for you. They help you try to get set up in, some sort of employment, some different things like that. Right. So my time was almost up. Okay. I had been walking back and forth to my job because I didn't have a vehicle or anything either at that time, and to a place that I worked at called Pier 1 Imports, was retail. Right. But it wasn't enough really for me to create a life for my children, if you will. It wasn't even enough for me to really be able to take care of myself, And I was laying there in that bed that night and I was like, man, I'm in like grave danger of like what I feel like could be becoming a statistic of, doing everything I said I wouldn't do, meaning like, and in no way, form or fashion am I, what is the word I'm looking for? Looking down on anyone that utilizes these particular things. But I felt like I was in grave danger of becoming a statistic in that being, a mother that was, low income, living in government housing, on food stamps, and that was going to be my existence. And that's what was going to end up being as I was raising my daughters. And I was laying there that night. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, what do I change? Like, how did I get here? Like, how do I get here? How do I become the woman that my daughters will be proud of? Because I wasn't feeling very proud of myself in that moment, and I just remember that I found this book that said something about like, I can't remember what it was called, like something about don't quit in the pit. was the name.
Mm.
And I thought, I really feel like I'm in the pit right now,
And
but
that is the whole point of breakthrough or bust is that's when we want to quit. Yes.
you know what I mean? I'm like, I
Oh
really
yeah.
feel like I'm in the pit right now. And I just remember they're laying there though, and I was just like crying. Like, I mean, I was bawling. I thought, like, what am I going to do? Like all the things that, maybe somebody has going through their head during that time. And I decided that I made
Especially
my mind up.
that early 20s, isn't it like the whole world crashes down on you like this is adulthood? Like
And that's exactly it.
that's what
Yes.
life is. What the I've been hosed.
100%. And I'm even going to go into that in just a second because it's interesting that you say that. Okay. Um, because I was laying there and I was just like, okay, all right. So what are we going to do, Charity? Like, we got to get our act together. Like, we got to figure something out here. And I'd been walking back and forth to work. And whenever I would walk back and forth to work, there was always a recruiting station that I would pass by, a United States military recruiting station. And, and as I was laying in the bed that night, I thought, you know what, I'm going to go in there in that office because, I don't know if I don't do this, then I don't know what I'm going to do because I'm on a big, like I'm on a fast track to, like I said, becoming what I felt like would be a statistic. And I was like, I have to break the cycle somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in there and, we had a conversation. There was actually 3 different offices. There was a Marine Corps office, there was a Air Force office, and there was the Army's office, right? So the Marine Corps, they're amazing. And I was like, but they were like not offering any sign-on bonuses. And I was like, I need a sign-on bonus. Honest. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get my life set up. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Really
know
honest.
your worth. Know your worth.
Exactly. And then the Air Force, I wanted to join the Air Force. However, they had a 6-month waiting list. And I was like, I don't got time to wait 6 months.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I ended up going into the Army recruiting station, talked to the recruiter, went through the process with that and decided to join the military. So I joined the United States Army. And, I went and I did that. And I remember walking through all those components. I remember how hard it felt for me sometimes in that I was like, sometimes we'll allow ourselves to be confined and all we can see is right here. Right. And you can't see my hands probably, but my hands are right up in front of my face. And that's all we can see is that's what it feels like what our reality is. And that there's nothing else outside of that. And we think about, I know for me, I was like, well, what if my children think I'd abandoned them, or whatever it was. But the reality of what it was is that if things didn't change, things would never change. In order for something to change, I had to do something different.
Yeah.
And in this incident, it took something drastic. And it was drastic in that for me, it's so interesting how I talk about it like this now, but the reality of it is that, we were in wartime. It wasn't a matter of if I would go downrange, meaning, deployed to overseas to a war zone. It was a matter of when would I? Mm-hmm. And all of those different components floating through my mind as I was, navigating what was this challenge in my life. Really in pursuit of something more, to become something, to become my potential. And I wasn't living even remotely and trying to figure out based on what it was that I was taught previously, from that framework, which was also somewhat broken.
Yeah.
So I said yes to that. And I joined the United States Army.
Well, talk to me really quick about the feeling that was inside of you about you're talking about when you're deployed and right. So you're going in during wartime. This is major. This is a major life change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was it scary? Were you in fear? Were you maybe a little fearful, but it felt right? What do you think?
I think it's a really great question. Because I think it's important that people know that you're going to feel these feelings sometimes. I was scared.
Yeah.
I was scared. I was scared because, like I said, it wasn't a question of if, it was a question of when. I did have some worries around, what my kid, as I was saying, what would my children think? Would they think that I left them, abandoned them? Was I making the right decision? And then at the same time, it really was also one of those things where it was like, I look back now and, we have some of those key things that happen in our life that honestly are some of the most pivotal and monumental moments. And in those decisions, our destiny is created, or we're in alignment with it, right? Like with what that is. And I look back at it now and I was like, it's exactly where I was supposed to be. And that, yes, there's been so many other things that have transpired even throughout my life. Like, when I went to basic training, I mean, I was already pretty tough given my upbringing and things like that. However, it did transform me. It did transform me. Yes, from a masculine standpoint, I would say in my mind, but in just knowing that I could do hard things, I that I would be able, like in a lot of ways, I found my independence again, in that I didn't have to rely on a man per se if I didn't need to, right? Like that I was capable, that my kids could depend on me, that I could depend on myself, that I could trust myself, and those things were really, I think, important lessons that we all should learn, right, in our journey. And that's what a lot of that taught me. And then once I got out of the basic training and I went to like my annual training that taught me how to do my job and everything, I did report to my duty station. And, it's like as soon as I got there, they were like, oh, hey, we're glad you're here. Your unit's already deployed. So say your goodbyes, like my kids met up with me. My husband did. And, which is, because I got married when I was in annual training. But they all met up with me in Colorado, and which was my first duty station. And it was like, okay, you should probably spend some time with them and you're going to go, right? You're going to go ahead and leave. And so that was scary for me, if I'm being really transparent. The way I dealt with it wasn't very healthy either. I just sat and drank a lot of Coors Light.
My next question was going to be what helped push you through the fear. Coors Light. Okay, you heard it here.
I mean, that's what I did. I was like, oh my gosh, like this can't be real, But I'll tell you, like, I went and I faced that fear, and I'm so grateful for that experience, and I'm grateful for all of it, every single piece of it. And when I came back home, my children were experiencing, what I would call really severe separation anxiety. They're 3 and 4 years old about this time. Okay. Just little tots. And, I remember trying to leave the house and stuff for morning formation when I'd come back home, and they would be in fear and be really upset about, is mommy coming back home? And that's that piece where you talked about like, man, did you get hosed or what? Right. I had my first thought process like that, what you just said. When I got back from Afghanistan, I was like, man, I am like doing what I would think I should be doing, right? To create a life, and there was times when we're kids, we grow up and they're, we're told like, oh, you can be whatever you want to be, like all the things like da, 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 da. And I'm like, but it's like, I'm 23-ish something years old. Right. And my kids are bawling like, crazy because they are afraid that I'm going to leave again. They're dealing with separation anxiety. It's taking its toll on my relationship because the mission is always the Army first. There's a lot of times that you spend away, whether you're training, whether you're gone, whatever that is, whatever component that is. And you're also still paycheck to paycheck. And so I remember just, there I am again, laying down in bed, and I was just like, I was like, exactly what you said. I was like, man, I feel like I've been lied to. Like, I feel like I remember praying. I was like, God, I don't know. I don't know what else to do. Like, is this really like what we do? We get to do this. Like, this is what, and I mean, again, you have to kind of think about what my state of mind was too, because everything shifted so much now. But then it was just like, I just felt lied to. I felt like that I kept trying to like get ahead, and like, it was just like, that kind of thing. Right.
Yeah. That's for other people.
Yeah.
People who have my background don't get to get ahead. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, just feeling frustrated, and also just praying about it. And I was like, God, just put something in my path, come on, I'm willing, I'm able. I mean, I'm trying here,
Mhm.
And the interesting thing is that, I thought I had a plan. Like in my head, we had determined and decided that I just came back from a deployment because my unit had already been down there for a little while. I didn't do the full term. And so, which, this is a unique situation, but it opened up an ability through some relationships I had created that I could actually volunteer to go back. Okay. And the intention was that I would go back. You make a little more money when you're there because you're in a combat zone. So,
wow.
so I was like, this was our plan. Okay. I'll go back. We'll save the extra money. Because I mean, like we were in a place where we were really paycheck to paycheck, BROK with E on layaway. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and we had ambitions to want to get involved in some sort of like, traditional franchise or a business. Only, it was somewhat laughable because like we couldn't even finance cheese with our credit, So,
I've never heard that.
so we're like, how do we bring this to fruition? Right. So as you can see, there was always that like, okay, how can I? Right. So that from early on, there was that thought process of, versus looking at something and going like, this is my circumstance. I can't, because it was always just this innate thing within me of how can I do this?
Yeah.
So for me, it was, well, I will volunteer to go back downrange, make some extra money, save it. Then maybe we can invest in, I think my husband at that time was looking at like a Subway franchise or something like that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, all that fell apart. All right. So I had gotten orders to go. I went like on a week leave to be able to spend time with my family before I was going to go on this 12-month deployment to Iraq. In this instance, it was to Iraq this time. And I got called back into my battalion, and they told me, the commander let me know that I was pulled from the roster, that I wasn't going to go. There were some changes that had been made. And of course, I'm devastated because I'm like, you are interfering with my
I was going to say, and then anybody else would have been like, woohoo.
Yeah. I'm like, you have to let me on that plane. Kind of thing. So anyway, however, so I was frustrated because I couldn't understand in all that, in my willingness. Why is this not working out for me? Like, what is the problem? Here I am just trying to like do something, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah. You know what? And I just want to kind of pause on that feeling. I feel like no matter what the breakthrough, isn't that the feeling? It's like, come on, I'm doing the stuff. I'm doing it. And it's just, no matter what level, because right, new level, new devil.
Yeah.
And so you seem to always go back to that. Okay, what do you want? I'm doing everything that I think I'm supposed to be doing.
You know what? That's interesting you say that, because I mean, it's almost like it really doesn't have, we make it harder on ourselves than what it, now I know that. Like, I
Yes.
and I still do that sometimes, but I'm able to catch myself in the awareness because it's in our quickness and our ability to go ahead and surrender that everything does actually flow to us, even in the answers. But it's when we get in our own way, in our own might, and we think we've got to figure it out and all these things, which is what I was operating from a lot. What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm trying to will things into existence here, and honestly, we're much more powerful than that. Now we know that, right?
Yes.
And that, so anyway, I'm frustrated about that, right? And all the things. And then I'm laying in bed. I'm praying, God, I don't know what this is, some joke. Like, what is this? Like, kind of thing. And got a phone call from a friend that I hadn't talked to in about 10 years. Okay. And it was one of them things, right? One of those pyramid things, and of course I had my preconceived notions about it too. I'm like, oh yeah, sure. I'll look at your thing. And I'm not doing that. That was like what I was like, I'm not doing this. This is not doing this. Not something I'm doing. And, not really. Cause I had like, it just was like, I don't want to sell stuff, or I'm not, gonna whatever, all the preconceived notions that often people might think about those things. And interestingly enough, I had an open mind, and I had some, like, they had a really great guidance and system. And my vision began to grow a little bit in that this could be an avenue. And it was honestly it's the one that I would have least expected to be the avenue, if I'm being honest. Like, if you give me a list and been like, these are some of the things that are going to help you go from point A to point B and where you actually wish to go in your life. They're going to help you expand and like who you're meant to become and your next level in life and your mind and your finances and the freedom you'd like and all this stuff, right? I'd have been like, it's not going to be that one.
Yeah. Nope.
Exactly. Nope. However, I slowed down long enough, and I listened and I learned, and I started thinking to myself, like, man, if these people can do this, like, I think I got a chance.
But I have to again pause on that. What my daughter is taking sociology, and what was it? It's like impression management, right?
Mm-hmm.
About what people think of you.
Mm-hmm.
And you wouldn't wear your club clothes to church, kind of thing, right? And so whereas you're willing to go off to war to earn some extra income, there's this pause about, well, MLM, and isn't that so fascinating how guided we are by cultural programming.
That's a really great point that you're bringing. Absolutely. That is incredibly fascinating, because not only had I done that with the military, and I'd say about that little phrase between like 18 and 19, I also made not like massive income, but some significant income. It was significant income for me at like 18 in door-to-door vacuum sales.
Yeah.
Knocking on people's doors. Like,
is that those rainbows?
My dad sold rainbows.
Okay, those are awesome.
I agree. They are. I was working for their competitor, Kirby.
Oh, sorry, Dad.
So yes, absolutely, I agree. And I don't know if it was you said impression management. I don't know if it was how people would perceive me. It's interesting to think about, like, why was it? Because I did say one of those things. I think it was just like, I agree with what you're saying. Like, I'm not one of those people. Isn't that interesting? Even
and there's just so much, and I don't understand why there's so much negativity around that. And I would much rather go spend my money at a big giant corporation than support you.
Yeah.
Wait, what? And I'm so much more suspicious of this person who's directly selling to me versus Amazon. And hello, I mean, we know, right, where the money is going in a big corporation like Amazon, and yet we're not suspicious.
Yeah, that's really, really a great point, actually. Yeah, I like how you kind of got that. I agree with you 100%. And I think that that's part of what, whether I really realize it or not, but it became that, and that message, kind of what you're talking about to some degree, in flipping what people perceive sales to be on its head, and helping people shift their paradigm around, not only what they're experiencing, like that they do have the power to shift their circumstances, and that they can create the life that, because I will tell you, like, we did say yes to that. And we were within that profession for about a decade. We went full time, both of us. Wow. My husband and I both did. We had business in all 50 states, in multiple foreign countries. We started the continent of Australia, 8 figures in sales organization. Amazing. like from, and it was from our personal recruits, like growing it in this organic way. Right. Yeah. And so
what I love is you said your goal was to invest in a business.
Yep.
And here you did.
Yep.
You didn't realize it looked like that.
Yep.
But you ultimately did it.
That's the truth, 100%. And even in overcoming what was with that, you know, it was like a $1,200 investment, I think, for that business. And, you know, I remember looking at that. I mean, that was like $1,200. Oh my gosh. Like, how do you even have like, and that was some of the reasons why we don't is the reasons why we should. And, we figured it out. You know, we got really creative in that and, you know, drew a line in the sand and said, you know what? It was also that decision. It was a decision in that, you know what, we're going to listen to the people that have went beyond before us and that are successful. And I really accredit a lot of that. I think it was the personal development. It was relentless. It was tenacious. It was, you know, having more courage than the opposite of courage. And I think it was really being coachable and teachable as well. And I think that that's what really helped to evolve that organization to the level that it did. And then in 2017, unexpectedly, it went away. And so that was a challenge. And, you know, given that our entire identity, what I know for me, my identity was wrapped up in, top network marketing guru, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like that's who I
And
thought
so
I
you're
was.
out of the military at this point, right?
Yeah.
Because you had went full time into
Yep.
this business.
Yep. Yep. 100%. Yeah. So it was like, where do you go from there? You know, like it was like, who am I? Like it was like this whole eat, pray, love journey. Like I remember I went to like Israel. Like, I mean, I really did. I like rode on camels. I'm like, God, what do I do now? Like, what is this? I'm real because it's interesting how we think sometimes that what we're doing in that moment. I mean, I literally thought that's what I would do for the rest of my life.
But you know, I love the fact that you're talking about you went to Israel to ride a camel to figure out what next for the next breakthrough, right?
Yeah.
And yet for that breakthrough, you could barely scrape together $1,200.
Yeah.
So it's like, even though it went away, look what it brought you.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And it's still evolving. That's what's so fun. You know, it's still evolving. And now I think it's one of those things where it's like, I think what I would have done sooner is I would have enjoyed the ride a little sooner, enjoyed the journey a little sooner. Yeah. I would have said, you know what, the prize is the process.
Oh, I love that.
You know,
we get so caught up in getting to the destination. And, you know, we cognitively know, no, enjoy the journey. We hear all those things. And yet you don't know it until you know it.
Yeah. And it's also in the understanding though, like if anything, like everything really is actually happening for you. Like it truly, honestly, really is. Like it's all happening for you, even in the moment that it doesn't. And I think I was listening to someone earlier today and they were talking about, you know, they said, you know, they were just talking about the more faith that you have in you. Because I personally believe that God is within us. Okay. That's what I believe. He's omnipresent. He's within us. He makes us in his likeness and in his image. And we are powerful beings. We co-create in that, and that we have max, like infinite, limitless potential. And I think that there's a lot of things in which that there's oppression created in that really kind of hinders us in what our full knowingness of what our capability is. There's a lot of reasons I think for that too, which is a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
However, when we really tap into what we are capable of, we can't even comprehend really. But when we know.
I truly believe that we are not given that information, because if we had all of that, it would paralyze us. It would be too much.
And that may be so 100%. I think though that there's a lot of really capable people though that walk around and it's just like, man, you know, like kind of what you're saying, breakthrough to bust, you know, like there is everything really what people are like in their worst moments. And I'm not making light of what they're walking through at all. Like I think we walk through things not for ourselves, but for other people. And I think that there's people that walk around and they're walking around bestsellers, you know, they're best-selling authors. They're There are all these things like, and I think that's why I'm called to so much of what I do now and with my company, Grit to Glory. And that is that I just honestly, I think I hate suffering to a great degree. I've experienced that in my life. And in that has created for me just a drive of just helping as many people as I can during my life that I get, which is a gift, to help them to overcome and to live, to break through and to live free. And that's different for everybody in a different way, just like success is defined differently for different people in different ways.
Absolutely.
For me, it's me taking a stand. It's using my life as a testimony, and teaching and being just relentless in my pursuit to, I have a lot of practical, experience in my life experiences. And then also just that ongoing pursuit of just understanding why we do what we do and helping discover new ways to unlock people to their potential. Because I do believe we're powerful beyond what we can even imagine and what we can comprehend.
Absolutely. Yes.
I think that people that have good intentions like you and people like me and the people that are connected to this podcast and to what we have in our community at Grit to Glory, I think that I feel like it's a conviction and obligation that I show up in that way so that it's just like, money's a magnifier, this information that you teach here, that I teach, all the different things in the hands of good people unlocked are going to do more good things in this world.
Yes. Yes.
And so that's my heart on that.
Yeah. So tell me, did you go from that MLM to Grit to Glory?
Yeah, I did actually.
How did you get there?
I know. How did I get there? It was a journey. It was a journey. Grit to Glory was birthed in 2018, of August of 2018. And, I'll tell you, for a little while, I was really challenged with, again, that identity piece. I think that within the network marketing profession, I never say anything with the intent of making that profession look bad, because I love it. I get to serve a lot of people still within it. I get to work with some incredible leaders, incredible companies. But I think it's important that in our awareness because awareness is where we grow. I think that, there were some things that caused PTSD for me and a lot of other people like inside of the industry, and I think that, there's just some proper attunement with leaders. I think there's a lot of hustle culture. I think there's a lot of things within there that
I think sometimes that's where it gets, actually, I think most of the time that's where it gets the bad rap, is in an effort to help people, sometimes we're pulling them out of alignment. No, do this, be like this, do it this way.
And if that's you're out.
Yeah, it's our way or the highway kind of thing. And then people do that, and of course it's not in alignment, and that's the energy that comes out, and the people receiving that energy pick up on that something's off here, something's not right. And that's where I think that a lot of maybe the negative mindset about MLMs comes.
Without a doubt. And I can speak to that specifically because that was an industry that, I was a part of. And I think that what's happening is it's just like trauma responses are being evoked over, like triggered. It's a chain reaction. And like, I know that even for myself, when I left the profession, yes, I could have went to another company, but I was frozen. I was like in a freeze or fawn response, because it was like, plus just there's such a depth here of conversation that could be had. And, it's interesting even to have these conversations, because I'll say that some of the things were just from like, it's almost like a brainwashing that happens, if you're not doing it this way, you're not a part of this community anymore, kind of thing. If you go do this community, then you're outcast. It's a lot of this different thing that's, it's a necessary.
Mhm.
And I think we could do better. I think we could do better. I think that the profession is an incredible profession. I think it's incredible to be able to offer someone people that see the opportunity as what it truly is. To be able to get started with $300 or $600 or $1,200, and to be able to truly, like, that's what happened for us. We grew to 8 figures in sales around the globe.
Wow.
Like that, with that $1,200 that we didn't know how we were going to figure out we went and we had to borrow the money. It was crazy. We sold things. And I'm not saying that people have to do that. Okay. I'm also just saying that we just had an unrelentless pursuit, and, it did pay off. It did pay off. Even in the end, whenever it went away, it didn't really go away because our experience, you could never take that, And so I think that all that had to happen, and for us to experience the things we experienced, and myself to experience the things that I had to experience, so that later on, it took me a little time to like really say, you know what? I wouldn't say the word authority, if you will, because I don't really like that word that way, but like I'm still an authority and an expert in itself, even outside of this profession. Like because here's what started happening. Okay. I started having conversations with really top tier leaders in the profession that were just killing the game, that I always looked at as like peers, right? They were my peers, when I was in the profession. And as I started having conversations with them, because I went on to evolve and to learn and to understand subconscious mindset concepts and, NLP and time techniques and all these different things, right, that we're learning, attachment theory, masculine and feminine energy, like all these things, right? I started to learn all these things. And as I was having, inner child work, anyway, so as I'm learning all these things about my journey, there came a day whenever I was having some conversations with what, like it was like my peers. I felt like, like these are my peers, we were top producers together. And I began to realize, like, in their vulnerability, as I had continued to grow, that I actually really, truly had something to come back and offer the profession, and then could shift it for even better.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah. No, you did. Yeah. Just that. Did it sort of all hit you that, oh my gosh, I have this knowledge and this ability to help? Or how was it? Was it like a slow realization? Did it sort of just download on you?
It was like a lightning bolt struck me when it finally went through. And I was like, and it was also a decision. Like, it was like, take your place, like you have, like, you have, as we should be with all of our gifts and whatever it is. I think sometimes we stand stagnant on the sideline because we won't give ourselves full permission to really operate in those gifts or in that knowledge or in that.
But I think sometimes, when you just get so sidelined by the fact that sometimes it's just that, oh, that's easy for me, so it must be easy for everyone else. Or, sometimes those things hit and I'm like, oh, duh. I didn't realize that was of value.
I agree with that. And I will also say that another correlation with it was as I built my self-worth and I healed.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, that full embodiment of giving myself full permission to be in what I've been building. Like, Tony Robbins, he, I don't know if you've ever been to any of his events. They're really powerful. Tony, that was free. That little plug. But what I'm saying though, is that, like, I remember one time being at one of his events and he was talking about, Tony Robbins and who you saw. He built Tony Robbins. I built Tony Robbins. Well, I've built Charity Schaefer, and it's in stepping into that and fully the embodiment of it and just being like, I built this, and owning that, like fully owning it. And with that ownership and that deep love of self, gives yourself permission to be that for everybody, to be that, to show up as that. And in that, you're also unlocking and giving other people permission so they can say yes too. So with your yes helps activate somebody else's yes. So it does matter. And we have a responsibility.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. I'm glad you love that.
Yeah. It's, and just that, I think that's a really great, what is it, like training wheel, I guess maybe is the word I'm looking for, of owning your value is, hey, if you own your value, it'll help someone else. Because so many times, again, the programming, I think especially women have been taught not to shine too brightly, to stay in their lane. And so when we think we're getting out of our lane, we get small, we get quiet, we dim, we do all that. And if you can start with, hey, it's going to benefit others, well, now we're of service and we're a little more comfortable with that.
That does help women. It does. It helps us get out of our own way, because we'll often do things for bigger reasons or bigger causes or something outside of ourselves. But I think the objective, so that gets just going. But I really feel that the objective is,
you got to take it the rest of the way eventually. Yes.
Absolutely. And developing that deep love for self, as you were talking, I was even thinking about these 3 words, it really is the process. Like even it's in like, gosh, I show up and I'm of value to other people. And it's also in that you're breaking old patterns, you're breaking old paradigms, you're breaking curses that have been passed down through generations. You're building the new paradigm. You're building, and with that changes. I mean, this is important stuff. This is of the greatest importance, because we're building what the future is.
Yes.
And so it really is. It's breaking, it's building, it's becoming. It's all of those things, and it's really important. I mean, it really is. I think that even I have an invitation to place even heavier weight on the importance of really what it is and what it means for our future.
Yeah.
Past when we'll even be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what is it that you want others to know? What wisdom did you attain going through it? What did you wish you knew maybe going through it?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, I think I've shared a few of those things, in that, I would have enjoyed the journey a lot sooner. I would have known, got outside of myself in terms of, gotten outside of victimhood, which I always say, I will never want to be that, And
it's funny. I was going to mention to you too, a word I heard out of you quite a few times was choice.
Yeah.
And I really feel like that's powerful. And I think choice goes beyond, it goes so far back. Like, we chose to be born into this life, into this body, into this family, it was a choice. Our higher self, right, decided this is what's going to help us grow. So we chose. So all the way back, it started with a choice.
Agreed. And, which would led me to the other piece too, which was a technique we'll talk about inside of NLP, which is the formula for success, which is cause is greater than effect, which means essentially we get to audit and assess in our lives. And you'll see even like it throughout probably the stories on here on this podcast, through the story that I've just shared, moments where I took a moment many times as I've shared the story through different seasons where I may have been living in effect. But however, whenever I shifted and I began to go, okay, so how am I at cause for this? What's the next right choice? What's the next right decision that's going to serve me and where I desire to be? How can I be in cause for this? Does that resonate? And meaning that whatever it is, we're in everything. It doesn't mean like I'm saying that like sometimes some really horrible, horrific tragedies happen. I'm not saying that like you are responsible for the things like that happen to you. However, we do have the responsibility because we get to choose what we're going to do on the other side of that.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
so we can, sometimes what can happen and what could have happened for me in my story was that I could have lived in an effect for the rest of my life because I didn't have whatever the certain opportunities that Sally Joe Bob did down the street, in my childhood. And then I would have never began to break, build, and become, right? I would have been stuck in effect. However, when you shift that and you go, okay, so how can I be a cause for this? How can I be proactive in this? And so therefore the formula for success that we talk about in NLP is cause is greater than effect. So you can look and assess in any area of your life. I still do this today in my life and whatever I'm doing and the different wheels of my life and my business and my career and my health and spirituality, all the different components. And I go, okay, so where am I at cause for things? Where am I living in effect? And where can I shift so that I am at cause? And then I can make more empowered decisions from that place. Because I can align them with what's our most powerful way to shift. And our most powerful way to create shift in our life is from the identity level. And I know you resonate with that as well, which is another NLP thing that we talk about.
Yeah. Wow. Charity, I have loved this. You have just taken us for a ride. We went from like homeless shelter to 8 figures. Amazing. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing this story.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you. I look forward to also connecting and having you on ours as well.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait. Yeah. Oh, this was amazing. Please tell people where they can find you.
Absolutely. I like to hang out. I guess old school. So I'm on the Facebook. Okay.
I am too.
Yeah. So you can find me there. My handle is Charity Michelle Schaefer on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. But if you want to get in contact with me and, engage with me, then that's going to be probably the best place. It will be Instagram and Facebook.
Okay.
In this moment in time.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I am so happy that you were here, that you joined us, that you shared this really powerful story, very empowering, inspiring. And, I can't say it enough. This is what we do here. We share the stories because it takes the stigma away. Oh, it's just me. I'm the only one who grew up in a dysfunctional family. Or no, you're not. I think, most of the generation here has grown up in a dysfunctional family. That was what was taught, and that's okay. It's not your parents' fault. It's not your fault, but now we're healing it and we're changing it. And we get to be the ones making those choices, right? The word I kept hearing, making that choice. So just remember to keep pushing through because there is a spark in you. Love you.